Hi, you guys. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Gyan Dive. I am so excited for today's topic, and it does feel like it's been ages since I recorded the last episode, but it's only been less than a week. So today I want to talk about something that so many of us struggle with quietly, the need for validation. And ironically, it's when I put out this poll on Instagram that y'all said you wanted to hear more about this. So I decided, why not? Because I feel like this is something that my younger version would have loved to hear about, and it's because I was struggling with it so much at that time. You know, the need to be chosen, to be reassured, to feel like we're doing life the right way. And wanting validation doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that you're human. But when our entire sense of worth depends on validation, we lose our center. We lose our North Star. We lose ourselves. And in this episode, I want to explore what it actually means to heal the need for validation. Not by becoming detached or cold and just giving up everything, but by becoming rooted and grounded within ourselves. And I'm going to be putting in wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita, of course, in true Gyan Dive style, because I think it offers one of the most grounding perspectives when it comes to self-worth, identity, and inner steadiness that I've ever experienced myself. I feel like after I've gone into the Gita and read more about some of the shlokas that relate to this, I feel like that's truly put it all together for me, if that makes sense. I feel like I had all the information put out there for me, but I feel like the Gita truly put it together for me. So I hope that this podcast is the same for you guys. And for you guys who are struggling, I'm sending you love. And with that, let's get right into it. So, what is validation really? I think validation is the belief that our worth becomes real only when it's reflected back to us. Only when it's reflected back to us by external circumstances, by people on the outside, basically by everyone other than ourselves. And it can show up in various ways that you guys might be experiencing at this moment, or you have experienced in the past, like I have. So people pleasing, or over-explaining, or constantly thinking about how we're being perceived. And I feel like when you get into that mindset of constantly thinking about how you're being perceived by everyone, you can never fully be in the moment, and you're just in your head, you know? And that is a problem in itself. But that's another episode. Let's continue. I tend to get sidetracked a lot, but it's important to remain grounded, and I'm trying to do that right now. So at its root, the need for validation comes from confusion about your identity, right? We start to believe I am what others think of me. I am my success. I am my mistakes. We identify with these things instead of realizing that they're just things that are passing by. They aren't us. But we identify with those things instead of identifying with who we really are, which is our soul, which is our Atma, which the Gita talks about a lot. And I know it's really hard to do that. I know that right now it may just seem you're the soul, what is that supposed to mean? But as you get deeper into it and as you get more grounded, I think it becomes more clear to you, as I'm currently doing. I'm not there at all. Don't get me wrong, I'm not there yet, but I'm on this journey, and I feel like being on this journey is showing me clarity, slowly but surely. So when praise comes, we feel lifted. When it doesn't, we feel unsettled. And we've been seeing this being reflected us more than previous generations have through the rampant prevalence of social media. Yep. I feel like these things already existed within the human psyche, but having social media in this generation has only amplified that. We start to measure our self-worth by the number of likes or comments we got on a post. So by society, we've been taught to look outward when it comes to anything, when it comes to your success, when it comes to how happy you are, it's all measured outwardly. We've been told by society to look outwards when we should really be looking inwards. And growing up, I'm sure everyone has experienced like posting a post and then waiting to see how many people liked and commented on it. For influencers, it's a lot deeper than that, where their mood fluctuates based on the engagement they got. Even as a content creator, I've struggled with that from time to time. Even though my podcast is about being rooted within yourself and is talking about the Gita, I struggle with that myself. It just goes to show how human that is to feel that way, you know. And at times I felt like my content was underappreciated based on the number of likes I got or the interaction I got, you know. And even putting social media on the side, I'm sure that we've all experienced this, even with our friends and family. If the people around us give us compliments, then we're elated. But if no one says anything about our fit that day, or worse, says something bad about it, our mood is potentially ruined. I'm sure we've all experienced that. Like, I can say for myself, even though, like I said, I've been on this journey, there have been times where I've been wearing this fire fit and then like no one says anything about it, and I'm a little bit like yeah, like it's gotten a lot better for me. I'm sure you guys have experienced a whole spectrum of this, but that's just the human experience, I guess. When we were younger, I'm sure we felt it the most, the need to be accepted by our peers to feel worthy. You know, the times in middle school, we've all been there. And we even experience this in our adulthood, guys. Like, we feel the need to be accepted by people. Where does it come from? So now let's look to the Gita for guidance, right? So one of the core teachings of the Bhagavad Gita is that you are not defined by outcomes, right? So in Bhagavad Gita, Shlok 2.47, Krishna tells Arjuna, you have the right to action, but not to the fruits of action. And we've talked about this a lot. I feel like this shlok is definitely one of the most important shloks in the Gita, because I feel like a lot of our problems could be eradicated just by thinking and reflecting on this shlok, right? So your responsibility is sincerity and effort, not how others respond, not whether you're praised, not whether things go as planned. And I think this is a little lesson for me too. Validation is attachment to outcomes, and healing begins when we release all that attachment, and that comes through surrender, which again can be another episode, but we'll go into that later. When we confuse outcomes with worth, we hand our emotional stability to the world, right? So you're basically giving the external world free reign over your emotions, right? If you go like that. So the Gita invites us back to something steadier. So we get, like, I'll tell you about my own experience. I've gotten like instantly demotivated by rejections from companies, like when I've applied to different jobs, and I think we all know how bad the job market is, but whenever I get rejections, my mood is just not the best, you know, like it's natural, you feel that way. But at one point, because society puts so much value in external things, it comes to the point where your self-worth is sometimes based on how these companies react to you, right? Or the same can go for like dating. I know for so many people, like my friends and just people I've talked to, as well as myself, my own anecdotes, guys. It comes from my personal life, from a time in my past, but we do look for approval from our potential partners. We see this both on the micro and the macro, right? Where our outcomes control our self-worth. And this verse reminded me that at the end of the day, I need to be so grounded within myself and simply put effort in without being worried or affected by the way that things were reflected to me in my reality. Like, instead of focusing on the 3D and my reality, I needed to go inward. But it can be hard, as we all know, because of where society puts importance, right? And we're all conditioned to be the way the society conditions us to be. It's simply natural. So something that I've learned is seeking validation definitely creates suffering, and this is something I've learned through the Gita. So the Gita explains that suffering comes from attachment, right? So when we're attached to validations, our emotions swing constantly, as you guys have heard before. I mean, comment down your own experiences, like when your day was going perfectly fine until something happened, and then it's done for. We're not rooted in that sense of joy. So praise makes us high, silence makes us anxious, criticism makes us collapse. And in Bhagavad Gita 2.57, Krishna describes the wise person as someone who is not shaken by praise or blame. And I think this is something that the Gita talks about a lot, which is equanimity. And I think we've touched on that before, but we really haven't gotten into it. But it's where you're not affected by happiness or sadness. You're not affected by success or failure. And that's a very difficult point to get to, but you need to start that journey somewhere, and I think we all should aspire to get to that point. And it is possible. It's just that you have to start. You have to start by doing the little things. So when validation runs our lives, we're always waiting to feel okay. We're waiting for external circumstances or people or things to make us feel okay, and that's simply exhausting to live that way. So this again goes into feeling so grounded within yourself that these external effects can't shake you. Like I said, it's very hard to get to this place. Even I've just started my journey, but these are things that have personally helped me become more grounded within myself. One is obviously going to the Gita, and I know that's not an accessible option for everyone, but even let's say you're not Hindu, and just going to your religious texts, it really helps, because these ancient texts have a lot of wisdom in them. You think that they're impractical for today's world, where they're just timeless. It can be the 23rd century, and I think it'll still be relevant. So I think firstly, incorporating meditation into my life has helped a lot. I think the days where I've started my day off with meditation, where I've just simply sat with my thoughts, I've simply closed my eyes or gone for a guided meditation on YouTube in the morning, I think it's just changed the way that I look at the world for that whole day. So I think I cannot stress the importance of this enough. It's so important to meditate. Anytime you get even 5 minutes, it's so important to just sit with your thoughts, and I think that really helps you become grounded within yourself. So go ahead, try that for 2 or 3 days and let me know how you feel. Also, prayer and connecting to God has helped me a lot. So again, if you're not religious, if you're spiritual, just connecting to a higher power, the universe, whatever you believe in. For me, it's God. For me, it's Shiv Bhagwan. And I feel like when I'm connected to God, I feel connected to myself, because we all have divinity within us. And I think that's why it makes us feel so grounded. So I think this is super important. Incorporating that into your day-to-day life is just important, taking some time out. And I think I struggle to do that because our days can be so busy. We all know there's always something, and there's always things to do. You're always on the go, but it's so important to take out time for yourself and for God. So meditation and connecting with God or higher power. And then another thing that's helped me is journaling, is writing down who I think I am, who I want to embody, which I talked about in the last video. So go check that out if you haven't. The link is down below. But I think that is really important too, journaling and putting that down on paper and having something put out, something concrete, makes it so much easier to live that way. So I would recommend that too. Again, I know these things take some time, but it's just an investment in yourself. And believe me, if you do these things, it will completely change the way you show up in the world for yourself and for other people. now let's talk a little bit about healing validation through inner child work. So one of the deepest reasons we seek validation as adults is because there's a time that we didn't receive it when we needed it the most, the way we needed it, when we were kids, right? Like, I think that's when we struggled with this the most. The need for validation isn't about attention, it's about safety, it's about feeling seen, it's about feeling accepted, right? A younger version of us learned, I feel okay when I'm approved of, and I feel anxious and unsettled when I'm not. Right? Again, society. So healing the need for validation means going back and offering that reassurance to ourselves. Your inner child isn't asking to be praised constantly, right? They're asking to be seen, to be understood, to be told, you make sense, I understand you. You have to reparent your inner child. Unfortunately, you need to now become, as an adult, the kind of parent that your inner child needed, but never got. Our parents maybe never could be the parent that our inner child needed, and that's why a lot of us have this wound, have this insecurity, have this need for validation so much. And I can make a whole podcast episode with this, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to hear about this. So yeah, I think that's super important, just like healing your inner child and healing the need for validation through reparenting your inner child. Talking from personal experience, I used to get fully swept up in my emotions when things externally wouldn't go the way I wanted, and I would immediately look to my close friends, subconsciously seeking for validation and approval, right? Instead, now I take a deep breath and ground myself, and then I tell myself and I tell my inner child, the little Shaylee, that it's okay, Shaylee, I'm here for you and I love you. And sometimes that's all you need in that moment. You know what you need the most, more than what anyone could know, even me. Like, you're the only person who truly knows what your inner child needs in that moment. So healing begins when you become the adult your inner child was waiting for. Self-validation instead of external validation sounds like, that hurt and it makes sense. I see you pain. I see you anger. I see you sadness. I see you frustration. You're allowed to feel this way. You don't have to earn love. You don't have to prove yourself. You're enough. You're whole. That's all you need to hear sometimes. And I think the best thing that we can do is give that to ourselves. And that's the thing that we should do, armed with the knowledge that we know today. And the knowledge that you will know now after listening to this episode. And this doesn't mean agreeing with every thought that you have. It means not abandoning yourself when you're having them. The Gita reminds us that beneath our experiences, there is a self that is steady and whole, the Atma, right? So I think the Gita beautifully ties it all together, and it reminds us that we're not these external things. We're not even our personality. We're not our sadness. We're not our frustration. We're not our anger. We're something that's much deeper and much older, the Atma. And I think that's so important to remember in times like this. And one of the most radical truths we forget is that we're already whole. Not whole when we're validated, not whole when we're chosen by other people. We're whole right now, as we are. We don't need to be anything. We don't need to be... I know we all want to be our highest version, but we don't necessarily have to be that person. Or we don't necessarily have to be a certain weight. We don't necessarily have to be in a certain place in life to be whole. You just are. That's something you simply are. And I think the Gita reminds us of that. So Krishna doesn't tell us to become worthy. He tells us to remember who we are. So when you're rooted in wholeness, other people's opinions may matter, but they don't define you. You don't let them define you, because you know that you're something that's much more powerful, much more connected to the divine and whole, right? And at the end of the day, there's one simple thing. What you think about yourself matters the most. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It might, like I said, it just like is something that's temporary. But at the end of the day, what you think of yourself matters the most. And that is why you need to help. You need to have love for yourself, and you need to know who you are, and you need to love that person. So, like I said in my previous episode, I worked on changing the micro thoughts I had about myself every day. Like I talked about in my last podcast. And I started speaking to myself the way I'd want someone to speak to me, like how I wanted someone to speak to me when I was a little child. The approval that you sometimes want from other people, give that to yourself. Tell yourself you're beautiful, you're amazing, you're intelligent, you're wise, because that is what you are. And if you've reached this point in this podcast, I truly believe that you are this person. So it's time for you to know yourself and believe that about you. And here is a gentle practice that I would recommend to you guys. So the next time you feel the need for validation, pause. Place a hand on your chest and say quietly, I am already whole. Say it out loud, and then ask, what do I think about this? Not critically, but compassionately. And that's how you ground yourself. Just place the hand on your heart and tell yourself, you're whole, you're loved, you're abundant, and you're beautiful. And that's sometimes all you need. You don't need external validation. You need your own validation. So, closing this beautiful chapter, healing the need for validation isn't about becoming detached. It's about becoming super rooted in yourself, rooted in your wholeness, rooted in your inner voice, rooted in alignment rather than approval. And the Gita also reflects this to us, where it doesn't ask us to stop caring. It asks us to stop outsourcing our worth. It's time you stop putting your worth out there for people to decide, because your worth isn't what people decide. Your worth is who you are already, and you just need to know that. That's all. When you act sincerely, when you act in alignment with your highest self, when you return to yourself again and again, you already are enough. And validation becomes something you can appreciate without needing it to survive. Like someone complimenting you, someone liking your post is cool, but that's not what truly makes you feel satisfied, grounded, and happy. You are. And it's important to remember that. Wow. That was one beautiful, heavy episode. But I'm so glad that you guys could be here for this. And I'm so glad and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to talk to you guys about this. And I hope that we all, myself included, can take something away from this episode and start to validate ourselves and start to become rooted in ourselves and start to love ourselves as we are, as the whole amazing beings we are. With that, I want to close this episode. I want to say I love you guys and thank you so much for being here. Subscribe, like, share, and comment so I know what to keep making and so that I can keep growing this channel. I love you guys. Have an amazing week and Om Namah Shivaya.